Hi folks, welcome to another episode of The Right Stuff, a co-production of PAC 14 TV and the Writer's Block of the Eastern Shore. My co-host is Dr. Gianni Hayes. I'm Andy Nunez. Today it's going to be my pleasure to have one of my good friends from the Writer's Block on to talk about his latest book. And folks, just let me say before we get started that the Writer's Block is open to the public organization. You're welcome to come by and see us anytime. I'll give you some details at the end of the broadcast. But if you're a writer or a poet or anybody that works in the media out there and you want to come on The Right Stuff, get in touch with us. We'd love to have you come on the show. But right now, it's my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine from the Writer's Block, Jerry Sciortino. Jerry, nice to have you on.
Thanks, Andy. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, did I murder your name?
Actually, a lot better than most people.
That's the first thing I went. Okay, Jerry, you've been writing for a while, but the folks out there, of course, don't know who you are. So let's talk a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally? Where'd you go to school?
I was born and raised in Staten Island. And after joining the Army, I went to Central America. I was working as a helicopter mechanic, and we were out there helping to remap all of Central and South America, which was kind of an interesting thing. I saw a lot of people, different things, and after that, after I was discharged, I went into commercial photography in New York City, but since I liked to eat, I went into something else, and then I went downtown, the Wall Street area, and going to college at night, and finally I ended up as a marine underwriter and a manager of the department, and I stayed in that position until I retired.
Okay. So you've been here, there, and everywhere, you might as well say. And you ended up back in New York, where you came from. You married a lovely lady, and her name's Jerry also.
That's correct, yeah.
So, but now you're here on the Eastern Shore. How did you get over here?
That's a really interesting question because it was really kind of happenstance. Going back to the time that I was working in the city, I had a pretty high pressure job, and I needed some safe and healthy outlet, and I began duck carving. And after going to a couple of the competitions in South Jersey, I'd heard about the annual Ward Foundation Championship in Ocean City. So from 1985 until we moved here, which is about 1998, Jerry and I would come down every year to compete in the Ward Foundation championships, and it was getting toward the time we were going to be taking an early retirement. That rather than turning around and taking the Lewis Ferry back to Jersey, we took the Great Circle route. And so. We came back the other way, and as luck would have it, we stopped for a bite somewhere, picked up one of the local real estate brochures, and decided that we'd do a little house hunting. And we found our place, really serendipity, if ever there was a example of it. The second place we saw was exactly what we wanted. And so that was about 12 years ago, and I've never known a moment's remorse for having come down here.
Jared, that's great. Well, we're glad you're here on the shore, that's for sure. Now, you've got a lot of hobbies, and you're like me. You like to do a lot of different things. Now, we talked about your wood carving, and we know you like to write, and we're going to get to that part in a minute. But you also like to go out and shoot Civil War weapons too, don't you?
Yes, indeed, yeah. It's not so much a pastime as much as it is a quasi-addiction. I got interested in Civil War period firearms shortly after returning from service, and in a fairly short time I had learned how to shoot them, repair them, restore them, and later on even build some new ones. It's really kind of fascinating to be able to hold in your hand something that was created during times of historic significance. Sometimes just holding an antique, whether it be a firearm or anything else, can kind of stir the imagination. I had, after shooting for a while, I met a fellow who was in an organization called the North-South Skirmish Association. First, I kind of wondered whether this was something political, and I was kind of concerned about that, but I found to my great delight that it was not. And basically, these are people, men and women, who historically oriented, who might have more of an interest in Civil War and Civil War period firearms, to get together in friendly competitions. Each unit takes on the name and uniform of an actual Civil War regiment. We have a large tract of land in the Shenandoah Valley up in northern Virginia, where we meet twice a year for our national competitions. Typically, around any campfire, people will just kind of let their imaginations, go sailing off into the blue, and we're no different. Many times, since many of us are historically primed, so to speak, we would wonder, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could go back at this certain battle and maybe tell somebody that they should take this hill or not take this hill or whatever, and so start to really move about. One of the things that is the main topic of conversation at these pertains to old guns. Back in the 1950s, for example, you could buy a Civil War rifled musket, an original in pretty good shape, for around $70. Today, that same gun would be $2,500 to $3,000. But aside from the compound interest that we're talking about here, there is something else too. A lot of us are kind of concerned that many of these guns that had one time been fairly easy to get no longer are, because a lot of dealers have bought these things up and sacked them away in vaults, and using them as you would gold or something like that. So between the conversations about the what ifs of going back into time, and the things about, gee, wouldn't it be great if we can go back knowing what we know now and pick up some of these guns? Wouldn't that be great if we could do that? Conversations start around the fire. What would you do if we could go back? And this one young woman just mentioned that she would love to have seen her great-grandmother, who was an operatic diva in the 1920s. So everybody's just gassing, so to speak. And into the firelight walks an older man dressed up as a Confederate soldier. I guess I won't tell anymore, because this will be starting to really get into the story.
Right, and that's it. And let's put a little bridge in there between what you do and what you wrote.
Right.
Okay. Now, we talked about your love of Civil War firearms and how people spin at the campfire. Now, what got you interested in writing first?
Well, I think it was sitting around these same campfires, listening to all this campfire chatter, and it seemed to me that that would be a fun thing to write about. Years ago, when I had an occasion to help a friend of mine who had an antique dealership. He had bought a large supply of World War I tunics, and I was helping him sort them out and going through the pockets, and lo and behold, I found a couple of artifacts. One was a small doll, obviously a well-used child's doll, no more than 3 inches long, one of those ceramic things that are sewn together, and it had a little note wrapped around it, "I love you, Daddy." And I thought that was kind of touching. We laid it aside. And in another one, I found a piece of paper, and it was the jacket had belonged to a man named Martin Marius Peterson, and he was going from Camp Grant, Illinois to, oh, I forgot where, Oshkosh and something like that, on leave, and this is preparatory to going over there. Mm-hmm. And it was signed by an officer, and I guess that was the first story I wrote. It was a short story about a boy who was going home before going to fight in France, and he falls asleep on a train heading home. He gets to the train station. He's kind of bleary-eyed, and there is an old man who is sitting on a buckboard and says, "Where are you going, young fella?" So he told him where he was living, and the old man starts talking to himself. "Geez, it really is not right sending all our boys over there. Something should be done about it." The young fellow falls asleep, and he wakes up, and he's at the train station. The train station doesn't quite look right, and he gets off, and he goes to pick up his luggage, and he notices a calendar on the wall. And at that point in time, he drops his little note because instead of 1917, the calendar shows 1977. So it was a way that the old man avoided him from getting involved, getting killed. So that was the first thing, and of course that would depend on dropping a piece of paper on the floor, and that would not do for a story. But anyway, that was the first thing I had done. I always kind of enjoyed fantasizing over time travel.
Right, you're saying, so time travel's been one of your interests ever since you started writing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you've written other stories, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and you're, of course, been a member of the Writer's Block for many years, and now you're back, and you've written an entire novel.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
that takes all your loves, time travel, Civil War, and things like that, and wraps them all up into one book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, folks, Jerry's book is called For Want of a Musket, and Jerry's going to tell us a little bit about, he's already talked about how him and his friends were around the campfires at the Civil War skirmishes and talking about what-ifs of history. And what-ifs of history, of course, is a very popular genre these days. There are whole series that turn on the change of history of what might have been. So now we're going to talk to Jerry about his novel, For Want of a Musket, and we've already talked about its genesis, so now we're going to talk about creating this book. Now, Jerry, what made you decide to do this book?
I guess it's a case where I wanted to, although our group, the North-South Skirmish, which we call the NSSA, has been in existence since 1950, there are still not that many people who are aware of it and the sort of things that we do. I have a great respect, as you know, for these people who were involved in the Civil War reenactments, And while I've seen a couple of them and had participated in a couple of them very early, I'm talking about the 1960s, we in the NSSA are not reenactors. This is a kind of an important distinction. I know we're supposed to be talking about the novel, but
No, that's all right. It's all context.
yeah, let's start out with this. Whereas reenactors will run around the battlefield reenacting a real or imagined battle. They run around and they fire blanks. We, on the other hand, skirmishers, do not fire blanks, but then too, neither do we shoot at one another.
I would tend to cut down your membership.
Yeah. It would be rather short-lived because we are firing real bullets at breakable targets, things such as hanging clay pigeons, flower pots. I can't tell you how many thousands of flower pots that we've destroyed at both 50 yards and 100 yards, and people say, I don't believe it. You're going to get an old Civil War gun and break a 4-inch flower pot at the distance of a football field? And the answer is yes, we do it regularly. But anyway, I think I did indeed digress, which is one of my many faults. With the book, I wanted people who might not have had any exposure to skirmishing to get an idea of just how much fun it can be, something about the camaraderie. We have people from all walks of life coming together, and we're talking about maybe 5,000 people. All come together, and not only is there shooting, there's a lot about history in general. If for example, people were to, guests were to walk through our sutler's area, which would be kind of tantamount to a 19th century shopping mall, the things that they would see there, the different types of tools, the different guns. Women can pick up items of clothing, patterns for making gowns and things like that. It's really kind of a learning experience. Basically, what we wish to do, aside from engendering camaraderie, is to kind of remind us of our American heritage and the people who had lived, died, in order to preserve what we have here in the country today. We see this very often in little bumper stickers, but it's worth repeating. Freedom is not free, and it's something that has to be safeguarded. Since history does not seem to be a very popular subject anymore, I think with the book, while there is some science fantasy, it is not all fictitious. There are some scenes in there that actually were from history. Some of them with emotion, and so even if somebody were not historically oriented, they would be able to see in this little bits and pieces of stuff that might hopefully stimulate them to pick up a history book and learn something about what has gone before.
Well, all good books make you think. And if a book doesn't make you think, then probably wasn't worth reading in the first place. We talked about your fellow skirmishers and reenactors sitting around the campfire, mm-hmm. talking about what might have been. Mm-hmm. Now, the characters in your book, are they based in any way on any of the folks that you've encountered during your campfire talks?
Actually, I tried very hard to disassociate my characters with people I know. I would be a fibber if I did not admit that there were certain personalities that I had in mind when I did my character development, and there might possibly be one or two people who might recognize something that would identify them with people that I've known, but basically they're all fictitious. Each of them, basically what we have are a dozen people who have the opportunity, who have the right stuff, so to speak, to be able to project their imaginations into aside from sitting around campfire and saying, well, okay, suppose we could go into time, what would we do? We have, I guess, what used to be called a Deus ex machina, this a God in the machine, this old Confederate who comes up to the campfire, who actually provides an ability to open that door into time. So now these people sit back and determine what they want to do. So you have 5 different subplots. You have a group who decided that they wanted to go to Alaska in the 1900s for the gold rush up around Juneau, which was to be Juneau. You had 2 other groups that wanted to go back to New York City at different times, and sort of things like that. But you before they go, there's enough of a character development where you can understand what their motivations are, and some of them actually end up having more of an adventure than they thought. But basically, the people that I've spoken to who have read the book, as I mentioned before, one fellow had devoured the book in a day and a half. Another woman told her hubby that if he wanted to have breakfast and lunch, he better do it himself because she was going to lock herself off and read it. It is a book, by the way. You know, one would think that because it deals with guns and stuff like that, the ergo it's more of a man's book, and actually there's something there for everybody. It's kind of like a sci-fi sampler.
Well,
But
that's good. Yeah. Did you outline out the plot, or did it just develop as you went along?
that's an excellent question. I started to chart a course, and I found that it was too constrictive. Since I, after a long experience going to school at night, learned to write into the wee small hours of the morning, I found that was still my most creative time, even though I'm now retired. So I would typically start writing around 11 o'clock and go to about 3. And sometimes I would doze off, and I'd be aware that I was writing something. Sometimes it was gibberish, but sometimes I found it a very disconcerting thing. My characters would take away what plan I had for them and went on their own. And after starting to strike out pages of stuff, I said, well, wait, let's see where this ends up. It didn't work out quite as I had figured it to be. Actually, it turned out much better, in my estimation.
Well, they knew what was best for themselves
I
better
guess so.
than you did,
Good.
I guess. Now, once you wrote the book, then you had to find a publisher. Now, tell us a little bit in our last few minutes how you managed to do that.
Well, actually, I ended up not finding a publisher. I had approached a couple of these self-publishing firms, And it seemed to be, the conversations were going good for a while until I looked at the author's agreement that we had to sign, and I took exception to one of the clauses in it. You know, having been an underwriter for years, you know, I'm not a lawyer certainly, but I know what things to look out for. And I took exception to a clause which seems to be, at least with the publishers I went to, seems to be a common thing. I wanted the clause to be modified. They wouldn't budge. Neither would I.
Well, which clause was that?
Well, that was the indemnification clause, and so that I'm not beaten on the head by a series of lawyers. Basically, the indemnification clause would require an author to reimburse the corporation in the event that somebody sues them. If, for example, and we all know that there are so many frivolous suits out there, and ambulance chasers, you know, willing to support people. If somebody takes exception to your book, or says, or feels or alleges that there is something in there that I stole, or that, or whatever reason, and if suit is brought forth, the author and the publisher are both joined, are all targets of the suit. In those situations, if you sign that contract with an indemnification clause, if there is a suit, the corporation is not going to fight it. And I've seen this with the insurance companies. In many cases, unfortunately, it's easier and, well, more expeditious for them just to pay it and be done with it. That would be fine for them, except in the event that there is such a situation, they will pay their part of it, and then you, as the author, has to indemnify them. So if you, the author, and me, the publisher, are sued, I'm going to pay it, my part of it. You have to pay your part, but then you also have to pay me back for the money that I put out on your behalf. And not only that, but you will also pay the fees of my attorney. So the poor guy or girl with a few bucks there is suddenly going to be paying money to the big corporation, which is, to say the least, patently unfair.
It does sound rotten for
yeah.
writers. Okay, we've only got a couple of minutes left, Jay.
Yeah.
Now, your books are available, the usual outlets, I'm sure. We can't talk specifics, of course, but and you go to a lot of the local shows. What have you found the marketing to be a difficult thing, or have you enjoyed that, or how's that working out?
Well, first of all, they are not available through normal outlets. At this point in time, in the process of testing the waters, I went out and I found a printer who put me in touch with a couple of firms that do the digital reformatting. So basically, I finance the whole book. I retain all copies of the book, and for now, at least, anybody who wishes a copy would have to go to a dedicated email address that I have. Later on, we will probably be setting up a website, but right now I just want to wait a little while. The only other thing that we're doing is advertising in a couple of periodicals, but I started out small. I didn't want to end up with I guess after taking 10 years to write the book, I wasn't inclined to dump it into the first commercial lake that came along. So
Sure.
that's why I want to test the waters first.
Sure, I understand, Jay. Okay. Well, folks, we're out of time on this episode of Right Stuff, but want to thank my guest, Jerry Sciortino, who's done a fantastic job on his novel. And when it becomes widely available, you guys need to check it out. Check us out at the Writer's Block at the same time. The Writer's Block meets the third Saturday every month, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the main branch of the Wicomico County Library, downstairs, room number 3. Public is cordially invited. We'd love you, have you come by, talk to us about writing. If you've got writing concerns, that's what the block's for. We're there to help you become a better writer so that maybe one day you can be on the right stuff with me and Dr. Gianni Hayes. But for now, we're out of time on this episode of The Right Stuff. I want to thank PAC 14 TV. And I want to thank Jerry for coming on. I hope next time he writes a novel, he'll come back for us. And folks, just keep watching. We'll be on again real soon with another episode of The Right Stuff.
Would you like to see your community organization or nonprofit group featured on PAC 14? To get started, contact us at 410-677-5014 or visit our website at www.pac14.org. PAC 14 is a great way to connect with your community.